Okay, so we're looking once again at cello, fiddle, violin on guitar, modified guitar. Cello, fiddle on guitar with modified tuning, parentheses, parentheses, unwritten. Chord positions, caged and modal. Now, I say caged and modal, like I've explained to people, when I name these charts, I name them in the beginning first, because I got to save it as a file name and all that, and then I make a couple of adjustments to the name as I go along, and certainly maybe at the end. And I'm sure the modal string shape builds do contain the cage string shape builds, just like a pentatonic scale contains the tritonic. Okay, so the only difference is in the A string shape. So we can use guitar for that. The cage A string shape is just 5/6. So when we have an A shape C, we got a 5/6. Okay, but the modal string shape is 5/6/7. Okay, so it'd be like something like. So it's 5/6/7. That's the only difference between the cage string shapes and the modal. And also, oh, that's not the only difference. Also, with the modal string shapes, we have root 2, 3. Okay, and we have 4, 5, 6. So we have our three longs, our S3 XL. All right, this is one of my older charts. It probably has what we need. Chart 153, cage link string shapes, connectivity. Okay, so that's what that's about. But we could still use this cage ladder here. So remember, your cage is just C, G, D, A, E string shapes. Here they are. Here's C, 3, 4, 5. But we've defined with the modals, we have 4, 5, and 6, which is the 4C string shape. We don't mention the A string shape because we just reference it to the 4. Okay, so we call it 4C. We also have the 5A string shape and the root 2, 3 string shape. So right here, okay, is our S3AXL. Right there. You add these into the cage string shape circle. Okay, so where would they get added in? At the 5 and the 6, because here's your A string shape, 5 and 6 right here. So we start on a 5/6, we end on a 5/6, and guess what? We can substitute for this A down here, this S3AXL. So we go around the normal cage pattern build with, of course, changing with the tuning warp. So as soon as we hit that G string and the B string, if we've got an A down here on the G string here, okay, and we're going to go to this 7 root 2. This 7's going to move over right here. There's your 7. As opposed to something more like, see how it's over here, but it's straight up here. So that's what, you adjust the pattern. Never know where the pattern's going to hit that tuning third. So that's why the patterns are done in P4, perfect fourth tuning. Okay, so that's the deal with the modal, the difference between the modal and the caged pattern build. We do a little substitution here where we start 5/6 here and we end just an octave right there, but it's the same string shape. We are back. And we have to kind of bring the lesson to a close, unfortunately, because it takes me almost an hour to get to where we really should be. And that is doing chords and stuff like that. So remember, this small build here is this here. We did that. We went 4 to 4. We went root to root, okay? Now, each one of these guys, each one of these modal cages, okay, has all 7 modes built in there. So Dorian over here, the Dorian cage, also here. That's it, right? Where's the cage end there? It's hard to see from here, but I believe it's like that. Okay, so that's the story with how it's lined up vertically like that. So in this Dorian cage, all right, in that Dorian cage, there's where the major, so these are the like cage shapes, the positions, the modal positions of the arpeggios. Remember, you can only play chords as big as the hand can get. So let's look in this case at Ionian to make it easy, because we're just starting out here. So we got one major here, right? So now we're going to be looking at this. Let's get the line thickness a little thinner. Okay, we'll make the color like, you know, just like a nice yellow, because we're in Ionian anyway. So let's zoom in a little bit more. So we'll go cursor mode for a zoom in. Okay, so we're going to be looking at the Ionian, and we're going to be looking at right here. Now, remember, you can only make chords what you can do. Okay, so here's the fret nut. Now, obviously, if we were looking at Mixolydian, the fret nut would be here. The C would be the 5. C is the fifth of F, so we would be in the key of F doing this one. Or we could have a capo up here on the 5. We could have Mr. Capo up there. Yes, we can capo a guitar fiddle. Probably hard to capo a fiddle itself, but I think they might have like curved capos. But then that would be right here. Root, 5, 6, 7, root. Sorry, see, I was doing P4. Now, one trick that you can use, so it's either play it in F or play it in C with the capo on the 5. So those are interchangeable. I'm sure a lot of you know that already from my previous lectures last year, the year before, or whatever. So, but what I'm talking about here is we're not going to be able to make a chord. Oh, okay, I'm going to hit this root, this third, and this fifth. That's a stretch. So we've got root is low C. Okay. What are we going to do about this string? Not play it? You know what I'm saying? And then we've got over here. So what we do is we do a broken chord, they call it. But it's put back together. So it's we're going to go root 5. Sorry about the rattle here. Something's rattling, but I'm not sure, and I don't have time to worry about it. Root 5, and then the E is 3. And then we can go root 5 on top again, and this is our this is our Ionian triad. Now notice we only used root 5, 3, root 5. We didn't get into this this stuff. And by the way, the cage itself, it only goes up to here. Sorry, this is part of the next cage. So we're not going to really get to be using these guys. These are in the D cage. Okay, they're also in the D cage. So let me show you that. but I want to just tell you before we leave this situation that we're working with chord